a huge growth market for a lot of organizations, I think, right? If you're talking specifically about talent acquisition, a lot of global organizations have everything from shared service centers to, centers of excellence to, really every function that an organization would have. For us particularly, I've been with CrowdStrike nearly 6 years now. When I joined, we didn't have a sales team in India. I went out to Mumbai and was interviewing people in a hotel. We've now got several hundred people. So I think it will continue to grow. I mean, post the pandemic, post COVID, right? Everyone's being a little more cautious on their hiring and not wanting to overhire. And, ourselves included, we're scrutinizing what we're doing, really with a focus though on just making sure we have the best people, right? The right people in the right roles, right? That's the key focus for us, right? In terms of, it grows. I think ultimately every organization has to look at their own growth plans and, scale according to those and according to, whether they're in a B2C or B2B environment, right? So, certainly for us, our scale of growth is about how us as an organization is growing, right? And then, we'll scale the teams accordingly. Where do I start, right? So, I love technology myself, right? I'm a big believer in it, always wanting to try new things. My team and I have personally had a look at things like chatbots, however briefly, just to kind of investigate it. I think you have to be really careful, right? We're a cybersecurity organization as well, so we're always careful about any third-party platforms we use. Ultimately, I see it myself. My opinion is that it has kind of 2 or 3 potential big advantages, and then I wouldn't call them disadvantages or cons, but there are definitely things you need to be aware of and think about, right? So, and we use a lot of online platforms, right, like LinkedIn or Nukuri in India, for example, right? And a lot of those platforms are starting to implement algorithms and machine learning for candidates. So there's a big part that will help someone actually search for a job, right? The criteria they use the hope is to match them to things that are more suitable based on what they're looking for. And then the reverse is true for organizations and recruiting teams like mine. It's the same, right? We can then use that to hopefully find those candidates, right? And you get a closer fit. And there's some great pros, right? I think if you look at an organization's hiring process, it's, they're always typically complex, but they always start with finding people to talk to, right? Whether that's applications, people applying direct, or, doing kind of proactive searching. And I think certainly they're in that kind of screening stage, whether it's automated using kind of AO tools to integrate into, whatever ATS system you're using. I think there's some real potential benefits in removing things like any unconscious bias, right? As an example, right? It can really help drive an even fairer hiring process than what, you may believe you're already running. For sure, we have a lot of hard to fill roles ourselves, right? Particularly within the cyber industry, there's some pretty niche skills. And I think it can help potentially uncover that talent, those candidates that aren't on the traditional platforms. I think we can use it that way. It's going to potentially be a huge time saver, I think, as well. Particularly in there are certain countries where you have a lot higher volumes of applications, for example. So you can use those AI, machine learning, those tools, those technologies to help screen and filter in a much more efficient way. The risks, as I see it, is that with AI, it relies on a huge amount of data, right? And you have to, as a recruiter, if you're using it, you have to know what you're looking for. Because if you get that criteria wrong, then the results are going to be less meaningful for you. So you've got to, the risk is you need to be very sure about what you're looking for and why you're using it to make it effective. And the other one for me is the candidate experience, right? I hope, maybe it's just because I've been in recruitment too long, but I'd never want to see AI machine learning completely take over a hiring process, because I think the insight, the judgment that you get from a hiring team of interviewers, right, that human contact, both in terms of assessing candidates during interviews and just building the relationship, right, with the candidate. I think that's something that AI is probably going to always struggle with. Certainly, it's still in its infancy as far as I'm concerned, right, in terms of it's not truly tried and tested yet. But they're the two risks as I see it. But I think they can be mitigated if you've got a solid, kind of hiring process. And then the biggest ones for sure are being able to move quickly. I think, right, that's where it's going to save you significant time, which will translate ultimately to significant cost, right? If you can speed up your hiring process, particularly in organizations that hire salespeople that have quotas, the sooner you can find and secure that talent against competition, have them join and start and ramp up, then the more effective they are for the organization they join, right? Which then has an impact on revenue and growth and things like that, not just how quickly we can get a body in a seat. It could never be undervalued, data analytics, right? Predictive, or just manually sitting with a spreadsheet and a download from a system. You have to either have teams that are dedicated to it, and we've got a great team here that purely focus on kind of our HR data and systems and work with us. I think the last point around recruiting software investments, right? It's something I use regularly. Practical example would be looking at our source of hire, right, and return on investment, and going, okay, we're spending this much with this platform, this much with this platform. How many hires have we made? How many interviews? How many applications did we get? Is it worth us continuing? We're right at the end of a contract now for one of my teams over here where we're doing just that. And the data tells a story, right? And it drives decisions, right? I think it gives you an opportunity to, at a surface level, this role took 10 days to fill. We had this many candidates, but you can then drill down much further and deep dive into that data to really learn and improve. And you can use it in all aspects of business. Certainly in our HR team globally, it's something that is consistently used. We've got metrics for everything from attrition, retention, top performers, everything you can think of to do with hiring, right? As I said, from return on investment to job boards to source of hire to, looking at whether our referral programs work correctly. So I can't undervalue it or oversell it enough, right? It's, I spend probably 50% of my week looking at data either on dashboards or spreadsheets or Google Sheets or in our ATS system, and you use it to try and make the best decisions about predicting the future, right? And learning what went well, what didn't go so well, and how do you continually improve.